no matter if you're winning or losing, I think when you're coaching, you're just always in the mindset of we've got to find ways to get better. The scores could have been flipped last night. We could have won 3-0, and we would have gone in the locker room, and there would have been some smiles and some high fives, and we would have said, all right, we've got to get back in the practice gym, and we've got to get better. Here we are, it's September. So that part of it doesn't really change ever. You're always trying to find ways of getting better and and pushing forward. We didn't close out sets very well last night. It's and Minnesota can do that to you with their tempo and, great crowd that was pretty fired up. And, we had an awful first set. We had 17 errors. And you're not going to the fact that we're ever in that set with 17 errors is almost miraculous. We had to, but I would say maybe Minnesota had a little bit to do with that. The pressure of being in there might have had a little bit to do with that. We cleaned up some of the errors as the match went on. I think we had about a 5-point lead or so in the third set. We were up almost the entire time, and so not to close that out was a little bit disheartening. I think we were a little bit slow in being able to make some adjustments defensively, and they've got two really, really good outside hitters for them that went off on us. Landfair and Wooker are elite talents that are still, the scary thing is they're still early in their careers. Gopher fans are going to have a lot of fun watching those guys continue to booker us. Probably Badger fans not so much. But they did a great job of finding some open court. And I think one of the frustrating things is we outpassed them by a long ways last night. It wasn't even really close between how the two teams passed. And so, defensively is something that we've been really, really good at. And to get their setter on the run the way that we wanted her to be on the run last night, and then for their outsides to bail them out over and over and over again, that kind of stings a little bit defensively. We've got to be better in those cases, but it's also a shout out to their talent and their abilities to be able to get good swings in those scenarios. And then we just miss too many serves. So the idea is, can you put some pressure on them behind the service line without missing as much as what we did?
Kelly, it's obvious your team is very resilient and stays in the mix throughout the game no matter what. But you mentioned it just a second ago about closing out games, and we talked about it last night. How do you focus on that in practice and closing out a set so that you can win the game when it's kind of hard to replicate that in practice?
Yeah. Abby, it's a good question. It's because there's a lot that goes into it, right? I mean, you've got leadership that goes into it. You've got, are your skills and fundamentals good enough to be able to withstand big moments, on the road? And that, one of the things we discussed afterwards is, that's when coaches are harping about being mindful in practice. That's one of the reasons why we do that is, can it hold up to the scrutiny of big moments on the road when, in last night's case, players go back to serve and they've got fans that are within, 18 inches of you or whatever. That actually is probably a lot shorter than that. And so in those environments, you gotta lean on your habits, that you're developing day in, day out. And I challenged our team to, can we be even more mindful of what we're doing with our technical work? So there's a part of it that comes into play. Experience certainly comes into it. But it's I thought we did some really good things well last night. But it wasn't nearly enough for a team that was playing at a really high level. That was one of the things at Minnesota. I'm sure their fan base and probably people felt like the sky was falling when they got swept by Purdue, 48 hours. But that's what makes this conference so gnarly is, it's never the end of the world after a loss. You've never arrived after a win. You've got another one that's coming right around the corner. And so it's, you got to be a competitive junkie to be able to want to be around in this. But we got Penn State in front of us, and we'll have the opportunity of growth this week.
Just a quick question on, forgive me because I'm the new guy, Eula, right? Am I
Yeah,
pronounced?
yeah,
Okay.
you're doing great.
Good. I want to make sure. I want to make sure I get all these.
That kid has so many different names that people call her: Eula, Yulia, Oz, Eagle.
Oh, okay.
I
I
don't
just
know
wanna make
everything.
sure yeah.
So just throw a dart. You got it.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I just want to kind of get your thoughts on. I mean, she had a pretty, statistically, a solid week, and it's been, always in the mix for you. But I guess I'm just curious, what stands out to you in year two for her? Where have you kind of seen some strides?
There's people that have big freshman years. She was, Big Ten freshman of the year. I would say that probably considers a pretty big freshman year. But there's some times that you see some players. There's a drop off that second year. The training in college, and there's a lot of times during the course of the year that we can't do things. Like. A lot of kids that when they're coming in their freshman year, they're doing a lot of stuff with coaches that summer leading in. And so there's this, they're coming in and they're ready to go sometimes. And then they get into college, and all of a sudden, we've got limited hours in the off season. We can't do anything with them in this summer. They don't have the work ethic to do things on their own. And sometimes there's a drop off that sophomore year. That has not been the case with Eula. She went and trained with her national team during the summer, and the confidence that the strength that this kid is playing with and the freedom that she's playing with is totally different level than what it was a year ago. She's playing at a really high level, but all of that has come through the really purposeful work that she's on a mission. This kid is on a mission, and we've seen that from the very first day, and she hasn't let up. And that confidence has been earned by what she's doing on a daily basis. It's been a great start for her.
Continuing on with Yulia, she has a very fiery personality. Yeah. I think it really showed last night when the challenge at the last second, and she was very adamant that the ball did not touch the ground. Do you see her energy rubbing off on anyone else in the team?
How could it not? Right? I mean, she plays sport the way that I think sport is meant to be played, right? I mean, you see her and you can tell this is somebody that has so much joy of playing with her teammates and with competing. I mean, just we have these things called catapult that all of our players wear, and it measures all kinds of different things it measures. But a lot of it is force, jumping and hitting the ground and sprints and things like that. And her numbers are just ridiculously off the chart every single day. I mean, really, because she puts every ounce of her being into about everything that she does. And I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah.
Can you talk about the team serving in the last 3 matches? You've had Gulce go off 6 aces, then MJ goes off with 5, and now Sarah with 5 yesterday, and just how they are kind of leading this squad.
We've had a lot of different people that have had moments of being really good. And now, as our challenge as we're moving toward the middle part of our season is, can we be more consistent with it, right? I think there are so many glimpses of what is possible with this team that I would think that people are really excited about. But there's a lot of mistakes and a lot of unevenness, which probably happens with inexperienced players, inexperienced teams, inexperienced leadership, all that. Hopefully we can get a little bit more consistency. But serving has definitely been a focal point of trying to be aggressive. And, maybe you mind the errors a little bit less right now, but at some point we're going to have to be really aggressive while also keeping it in play a little bit better than what we have.
Oh, one other EULA question, and you may have touched on it with this. Would you call it the catapult?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, from a height standpoint, she's probably your shortest outside hitter. And I was gonna, before you started talking about the catapult, I was gonna ask you about just why she, despite maybe not being as tall as some of the other players, she's able to, perform and produce. I mean, but can you speak to that a little bit?
She's skilled, very, very skilled. She came in with a great skill set. She learns the way that you should approach learning. She leans into learning. She leans into hard stuff. And too many players don't. They're afraid of looking bad. And so they don't lean into the learning part of getting worse and then working hard to get better. She really leans into that. And there's no fear from the kid at all. It doesn't matter what the moment is. The kid is fearless. It's she's a unique combination of what she brings to the table. She's a fun kid to coach, and she is a little bit smaller, but it's she finds a way to get things done, right?